Welcome to the Victory Groove podcast. I'm your host, Eli Jones, and this is the podcast that helps you conquer the giants that we all face in life. Just as David faced Goliath confidently, knowing God was on his side, you also can face your giants, knowing that you already hold the keys to victory. This is Victory Groove. We always say that, Coach, we always say we have the victory. We just need to get our groove back. You like that,
Yeah,
Coach?
I like it.
Wonderful. We are really pleased to have the beloved R.C. Slocum, Coach R.C. Slocum, with us today as a guest. And R.C., I'm just really excited about having you. I know it's taken us a while to get together. He is so busy. He speaks everywhere. He's so well known. And I'm just really pleased to have you, Coach. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining
It's
us.
great to be with you, Eli. I appreciate our friendship, and it's
Yes, sir.
enjoyable to be with you.
You have impacted so many lives, and I am just so joyful to have you. And we're going to talk a little bit today. You know, you and I talked offline about what is the purpose of Victory Groove. And it really is an opportunity for us to have people on who have overcome major challenges. And I know you had a recent one. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I just want to give the listeners a little background on you, and then we'll have a conversation about a couple of these challenges. So Coach R.C. Slocum was the head coach at Texas A&M, from 1989 to 2002. He won more games than anyone else at Texas A&M. He coached 172 games, and his team won 123 of them. Won 4 conference championships. Texas A&M became the first school in the Southwest Conference history to post 3 consecutive perfect conference seasons. Coach Slocum has the best winning percentage in Southwest Conference history. During his time at A&M, he had the longest active home winning streak in the country in 1994 and 1995. He won the Southwest Conference Coach of the Year 3 times. More than 50 Texas A&M players were drafted into the NFL during his time as head coach. He has impacted lives, and I can tell you that we just love him in our community. He is out and about. He's doing some incredible things. He's still very, very active. And his wife, Nell, is a very dear friend, too. She and Fern, my wife, are very, very, very close. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about some Goliaths today, Coach. But first, before I get there, I want to talk a little bit about your background. Kind of give us an overview. I know you were born in Louisiana, and you were raised in Orange, Texas.
Yeah, I was born in Louisiana, Oakdale, which is kind of central part of the state, and my family, really on both sides, were from Louisiana. But Orange was kind of a catching place. Shipyards and refineries and things. A lot of people moved from Louisiana to southeast Texas because of the job opportunities there. And this was right after World War II. So I moved to Texas, to Orange, and it's about 1945, early 46 that we moved there. And for those not familiar with Orange, it's the last town in Texas before you get to Louisiana. Or said another way, it's the first town in Texas if you're coming from Louisiana. You cross the Sabine River and you're in Orange. And so that's where I grew up, but made many trips back to Louisiana in my childhood, going back to see cousins over there, and grandmother and grandfather, and so spent a lot of time there. And then went to high school in Orange at Stark High School in Orange, and then went to college at McNeese State in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and had a really enjoyable career there. Had great coaches, and it's one of the things that impacted me in my career and my career choice. I had I had really outstanding coaches in junior high and high school. I started in the 7th grade. I never had played football, and I had a coach in a PE class. Coach Frank Moats came and put his arm on my shoulder and says, "How come you're not out for football?" And I said, "Well, I never have played. He said, "Well, I think you could play. Why don't you come out?" And I said, "Well, I'll have to ask my family." And in all honesty, they weren't too encouraging when I asked them. They said, "All I hear about is guys getting hurt or what." I said, "No, I like to go ahead and do it. I'm not real big." So if I'm gonna play, I should go ahead and play now. I was a little skinny kid, and I said, because I probably won't be big enough to play in high school. Well, I went out, and man, I had such great coaches. Great men. They were good football guys, but they were great men and encouragers and drivers, but encouragers. So had that all the way through junior high, all the way through high school, and then I was so fortunate. They polished me up to the point where I got a scholarship and could be the first in my family to go to college. I went to college. I had the same kind of coaches. My head coach in college, a guy named Les Duvall, taught Sunday school class on Sunday morning at First Baptist in Lake Charles. And so that his background kind of set the tone for what our other coaches were like. And so at some point in there, I came to the conclusion that based on the impact that my coaches had had on my life, that if I could have that same kind of impact on other young people, young men's lives, that'd be an enjoyable way to have a career. So that's why I went into coaching, because of my coaches. And I would say at this point in my life, the most rewarding thing to me, we won championships, and we won. I'm in the College Football Hall of Fame as a coach, and the different Texas Sports Hall of Fame. Some of those honors, and those are great. But the real meaningful part of my career is the interaction that I still have with my former players, and to see them and see the success that they're having, the values that they have, and to have them uh, tell me how I impacted them and that it did make a difference in their lives. It's like it was worthwhile. My time was well spent, and the wins and losses tend to run together, but the relationship, there's not a day that goes by that I don't hear from
Yeah,
one of those former players.
that's right.
And it
Oh
ends
yeah,
with me telling them that I love them and they love me,
that's right.
and so
Yes, they
that's a special
yes.
deal.
It is. It is. You are so well loved. I've actually witnessed it myself. We've gone to restaurants together and having dinner, and all of a sudden someone will walk in and just grab Coach and hug him and talk about the impact that you've made on their life. It's just amazing, really amazing. Well, we have a few things in common. So I mentioned at the outset that we both have Louisiana roots. Now, I wasn't born in Louisiana, but my dad and granddad were in Gum Cove. Are you familiar with Gum Cove?
Gum Cove, where is Gum Cove?
Not far from Lake Charles. Not far from Lake
Oh, I know
Charles at
right
all.
where it
In a
is.
little
That's
more.
what I was thinking. I know where Gum
Yeah.
Cove. There's a ferry there, the Gum Cove.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
I know, right? That's south of Lake Charles,
It is.
and
That's right.
south and a
Yep.
little bit west. I've been down there. I'd go fishing down, and there's a marsh down there. I'd go fish,
Yep.
go duck hunting down there. But
Yeah.
they call that ferry the Gum Cove Ferry, going across there at Gum Cove.
That's right. That's right. That's right. We're also both first generation college graduates, and you and I have talked about that, and that in itself can be a giant for many. We've talked about being on the campus and being the first one in the family. Now, in my case, I had a sister who actually attended Dillard University. We were part of the first
Yeah, New
generation
Orleans. Yeah.
in our family, but it is a challenge, and I have a chance to talk to first gens,
Well,
and
you find out a
yeah,
whole lot of those words that you've grown up pronouncing them one way, that's not really the way they're pronounced.
that's right.
A lot of those
That's
things,
so true.
I mean, it's true. You grow up and you hear these
Yep.
words, all your life. You pronounce it
Yeah.
one way. You get to college, they say, no, that's not the way you say that
You're right.
word. And
That's so true.
some of your sentence structure and some of those
Yeah.
things aren't exactly what you've learned it to
Yeah.
be, because not only your family, but generally people like the neighborhood I lived in. I actually lived in a project in Orange called Riverside. It was a row of duplexes that they built during World War II. It was built for the Navy personnel, and they've just thrown up, for the war. And then after the war, a private investor bought them and turned them into like a low rent housing addition. And there were so many kids in there. There were 3 elementary schools in that addition. This is one. At the time it was built, it was the largest government housing project in the United States. Riverside Addition, Orange, Texas. So anyway, when you're out there, not only you but everybody else around you, they talk they talk like this.
That's
They
right.
don't know, so
That's
they
right.
don't know what they don't know though. We
Yeah,
communicated,
that's
we
right.
just didn't know. And then when you go to college, you're in there,
Yeah.
and Mercy, you find out there's a whole nother world out there, but it was
That's right.
fun. To me, that was exciting to say, man, I'm growing, I'm learning. I tell my players a story every year about a girl named Carol. And my freshman year in college, I sat next to her, and nice girl, nice lady. So one time in there, we talked. We hadn't dated anything. One time she said to me, "What about going out? Would you like to go out to dinner sometime?" And that was pretty forward in those days for a woman, a girl to ask. I said, "Yeah." I was starving to death eating on the training table. I said, "Yeah, probably have to go on Thursday night because we have a shorter workout that day." So anyway, we agreed to have dinner. She's going to come by and pick me up. She had a nice new car and everything, which I was impressed with. Then the day or so before, she asked me, said, "Do you have a sport coat here?" And I said, "Yeah, I brought one to wear to church." "Why?" She said, "Well, you need to wear it." And I said, "Oh," I started getting nervous then. I never had worn a sport coat anywhere to eat, you know. She said, "Well, we're going." So then I said, "Okay, I'll do that." See, I'm taking you to a nice place. So we start going, and we get just before we get there, she tells me that her parents are going to meet us there. I said, "Oh God." So anyway, we go, and it's still to this day, if you come over the High Bridge in Lake Charles, Louisiana, the tallest building in town, on top of that was the Pioneer Club. And so we went in there, and it's dim lights, and they had some soft music going over the corner. We sat down at a table, and they brought these big old huge menus. I'd never seen a menu like that. And I didn't know. I saw steak, I recognized that, but I look at my place setting there, and there were knives everywhere, and spoons, and forks, and glasses. And I said, "Lord of mercy, what's all this for?" Anyways, they went around the table. They went to her mother, and then her dad, and then to her, and taking our order. And I just said, "I'll have what she's having."
Uh-huh.
I didn't want to venture into ordering because I didn't know what half that stuff meant. So anyway, and I tell my players this because many of them were coming from backgrounds where they were uncomfortable when they first arrived at A&M. And so I tell them, I said, when I left that night, I had a decision to make because I felt really uncomfortable that whole evening. And I was uncomfortable not because I wasn't capable, but I just had never been exposed to that environment. But I had to make a decision, either never ever put myself in that situation again, or the better choice, find out what all those forks and knives are for and the glasses and how you do that deal. And so I made that decision. And I'm so thankful over the years. If you fast forward, and I went 3 times, my wife and I went to Greece with former President George H.W. Bush and his family on their family vacation. And we had many of those dinners where we had a bunch of knives and forks and glasses and all that, but I knew how to do it then. And so that to me is part of the education that you get. It's not that you can't do it; you just have not been exposed to it. And I would tell young people, the young men I would recruit from inner city areas, that if you want to do what you're capable of doing and go out in this world, I want you to feel totally comfortable going
Mhm.
to the tallest building in Dallas or Houston or New York or LA and go in and have confidence in yourself and know how to dress
Mhm.
and know how to act, know how to talk. And so college was a great experience for me and very educational. And then my brothers followed me, and all of our family now. My sons are A&M graduates, and I've got nieces, and nephews. I got a grandson who's a freshman at A&M right now. So it's been a remarkable change experience. But, and I'll say this, and I'll say this intentionally, it had nothing to do with black, white, brown, any of that. It was about uneducated, and uneducated people generally live in lower lower income kind of neighborhoods. And they have a certain way they do things, but you can get out of there. Over the years, it's so much fun for me to see all my players. The ones from inner cities were especially meaningful to me. I go in those homes, it may be a black hole, but I see my family. I saw myself in the young men, and I saw my parents. They were good people, and in many cases, most cases, they were hardworking people. They just didn't have the benefit of education, so they lived where they lived, and they talk like they talk because
Right.
of the
That's right.
same thing that I experienced as a young man.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Same here, Coach. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate the impact that you're making on so many lives, and especially those people from the inner city. And I think about your wonderful career, and I've got to go there for a minute. I want to talk about a few of your giants that you have faced and been able to overcome. This was one of them, obviously, being the first gen and really, sticking to it and learning. But let's talk about another one. So as I was going back and reading, your background, of course I know it, but I started thinking about, 2002 was kind of rough for you, Coach.
Yeah, it
You were
was.
asked to resign. And
Yeah.
with all of that, with all the winning streaks and all the being all those accolades, and so all of a sudden you're asked to resign. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well,
Talk
I
about those
came,
emotions.
in coaching, and I chose to go into coaching. And I told you
Yep.
why I did it, because
Yep.
of the impact my coaches had on me. But having been a long time coach, I saw over the years what happened to coaches from time to time at different schools all over the country. Coaches would be asked, guys that I thought were good coaches, I would see them be fired or asked to resign for whatever. Somebody thought they could do better. Some school, and usually it's just a few individuals or maybe one individual, so thinks that maybe we could do better if we had another coach. So that I always recognized that was part of coaching, and it still doesn't make it easy. I'd beaten the number one team in the country at A&M, Oklahoma, a month before I was fired. I beat the number one team. The only time I'd ever done it at A&M. The first time it ever been done there at Kyle Field. And then a month later, and I had an injury right after that. My quarterback, Reggie McNeil, got hurt and missed the Missouri game, which we lost in double overtime. And so I had two double overtime losses. And it's one of those things where I was having really a good recruiting year. We had a new building coming, a new football building coming. And I was excited about that. We were using that in recruiting. But so anyway, I was called in and told that to resign. And I said I'm not going to quit. If you want to fire me, you can fire me, but I'm not going to resign or retire or whatever. So I said I just want to set the record straight that you announce it however you want to. But anyway, so one of the interesting things about that, the next Sunday I was in church and I accused a preacher later who was a friend of mine. I accused him of directing this at me, but he said he didn't. He just felt led to do it. But he said, each of us in our lives, uh, sometimes you have people do something to you. And the human nature, the human reaction said, "Oh, I'll get them. If it's the last thing I do, I'll get that guy or I'll get those people or whatever." And he said, when you do that, when you take that reaction, all you do is fill yourself up with poison. And
Mhm.
normally you don't even affect the other person. They don't even feel it or know it or whatever, but you fill yourself with poison. He said, what you should do in those circumstances, just turn it over to the Lord. And if they need to be gotten even with, he can really do it. But don't fill yourself. You take the high road. So that meant so much to me. And I had President Bush call me down to Houston a day after I got fired. He said, "Why don't you come down here? Let's play golf." And we'd done that, and I just didn't. That wasn't really something I was jumping up and down wanting to do. But I had a hard time. He was a dear friend, so I drove down to Houston. We played golf, and when we finished, he said, "Let's come out back here and sit down. I want to talk to you a little bit." And she told me, she said, "I trained my whole life prepared to be someday hoped I could be the president." And I was. I reached that point and I thought I was doing a good job. And they booted me out. He said, "So I know how you feel. I know exactly. But I would encourage you just to take the high road. You've been a great coach. You've had a great career. Take the high road and do it." So I drove all the way back home thinking about that. And so I've tried to do that. I called both my boys. I called in the night it happened. And they were upset, and man, they had press outside on the walkway in front of the house. "We're not doing any interviews." They were all, and I said, "Hey, wait, let me tell you something right now. Let's get it straight. Texas A&M has been good to me, and it's been good to our family. Aggies have been good to me and good to our family. So we're going to take the high road in this thing, and I don't want to hear another word. And both of them had already gone to A&M and graduated. And I said, and so now they couldn't go back and go to get another degree somewhere else and say I'm whatever. They were Aggies, they've been in. So now I'm so thankful by taking that approach. Now I got three granddaughters that have graduated from A&M. I got some nieces, nephews, and I've got a grandson there now. So, but just by doing that in my leadership, if you will, in a tough situation, in one of those obstacle deals, I could have easily gone the other way and I would have impacted a bunch of people in a negative way. Instead, I tried to do the right thing and take the high road and just be thankful for all the good things that I had. And now
Yeah,
I'm being rewarded for it because I've got
that's
those
right.
kids. We have home game. I've got always got family at the games, and it really makes it special.
That's right. That's right. Oh, the grace that you have, just amazing. This community still talks about that. Just first class. I was visiting with a group of people not long ago, and we were talking about forgiveness. And we were talking about exactly what you said. And, when you don't forgive, that is actually affecting you, yourself, right? There are all kinds of health challenges that come from that when you don't forgive. But you've forgiven, and you're just so well respected. In fact, you went on to be advisor to several presidents of Texas A&M,
Yeah,
including Robert Gates.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
was. I told him, I said, I never questioned any decision you made but one. It's,
Get right.
and I know
Yeah,
that that wasn't, he had people then in his ear on that one. But then he came back here to speak and to a big crowd at the Bush School. And he saw me in the audience and he called me out in the audience and complimented me on the way I had handled it. It really is very graceful for him to do that, gracious of him to call. He said, RC stayed on, worked with me, and was very helpful to me in some of the issues that he had to deal with. And I've been honored. I've had every president uh, has kept me in that position. It's a part-time position, but I enjoy it. And I represent A&M, and I talk to the presidents from time to time. Our current president, Dr. Banks, I've had some very good conversations with her. And so that's been meaningful. It keeps me involved. I last night had dinner with one of our big donors, Wayne Roberts, that you know.
oh yeah, of
You know,
course.
Wayne, the
Yes,
two of us
absolutely.
had dinner last night. He'd
Yeah.
gone through a tough time, lost his
Oh yeah, it
wife
was Shannon.
to
Sure
cancer,
did.
and so
Yeah,
we kind of went back and forth with our stories last night and encouraged each other, and
that's good.
so it's meaningful for me to be in
Oh
this
yeah.
position.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned Wayne, and Fern and I got to know Shannon
Yeah,
very
right.
well,
Yeah,
and yeah, and I tell you, your Fern sings. I think you know that, and Fern actually sang a very special song to her. Short, I mean, right before she passed, it was just amazing. But you brought this up, this idea of cancer, and you are the perfect person to be talking to Wayne about that. Of course, you were diagnosed with cancer. Was that last year? Was that last year?
yeah. It
And
was in June, actually, a year
yeah,
ago in June, and
yeah.
it was a shocking thing. I felt well. I was playing golf, doing whatever I wanted to do. I wasn't sick. I had a little kind of a hacking kind of a cough it would not all the time, but I would cough for no apparent reason, and my voice got a little weak. I've always had a fairly strong voice, and it got to where and so my wife said, "You got to get that checked." So I talked to my doctor, and I got a little prescription for some steroid Medrol packed. And it was the time of the year when people have allergies, although I'd never really had allergies, but it was kind of like you'd think you had a little allergy cough. So I did that. It went away for a time, but it came back. So I said, well, and she said, you need to get that checked. So I got it. I took a chest x-ray. And I got a call from the doctor said, you got a little problem here. We need to do a CT scan tomorrow. So I did that, and it showed swollen lymph nodes, and it looked pretty serious. So I arranged to go down. I went to MD Anderson in Houston on Monday morning. I got an appointment down there, and they confirmed that I had lymphoma, and I went through quite a bit of testing there in a couple of days, and I had lymphoma. We came up with a plan to deal with it, to treat it, and it was it was a shot. Your mind starts, all these things start running through your head about, how can you get over it? Can you be cured? Can you whatever? And it was stage 4 lymphoma, and initially I read a little bit. I Googled some stuff, and it was like it was not good because you're reading about other people, other percentages, all these things, and it was just putting a whole lot of negativity in my mind. So what I started doing is just focusing on praying, and I felt in my mind, and I still feel that, I said, I've been blessed. I've had a great career. I've got a wonderful family. I've never had real health problems. I don't didn't was not taking any medications at that time, and I'm not today, thankfully. But anyway, I just said, I'm gonna go through this. And at first, your mind, the human part, I would pray, but then as soon as I quit praying, inevitably I'd start thinking about, well, this or that or what, and I'd start getting negative thoughts. So then I've always felt like faith and fear really don't coexist. They don't go together. If you have strong faith, you shouldn't have much fear. If you really exercise in your faith and just trusting and believing, and so I reached a point, and really it was kind of a breakthrough point for me. It was when I reached a point and just said, Lord, it's in your hands. I thank you for the life that I've been afforded. And it's up to you. If it's time for me to go, then I'll live with that. And if you want me to stay here and do some more work, I promise you that, and I promise you I'll share my testimony. So I'm thankful that Eli, you're giving me an opportunity to share my testimony and share about the goodness and just what it freed everything up to me when I've just turned it totally over to Him and said, I'm gonna do what the doctors tell me to do, and I'm gonna just go through this process, and we'll see what happens. So after 5 chemo treatments, and the treatments would go every 2 weeks, I'd take the treatment, then I'd have to take some shots in between to try to build my white blood count back up. Then I go take another chemo and knock them back down. But after 5 treatments, I went to Houston, and I was kind of a little bit anxious about that visit down there. I was taking my chemo here at Baylor Scott and White, but I was going to Houston for the checkup. And so Nell said, look, I'm driving that Faith wagon down to Houston in the morning. If you don't want to go down there with Faith, you need to get you another way to go.
I love it. I
Anyway,
love it.
so I'll ride the Faith wagon. So we
There
went
you go.
down there, and after doing testing all day, the doctor came in, and right off the bat, he sat down and kind of like he was pulling up his computer. And he said, oh, yeah, oh, by the way, how y'all doing? And Nell says, well, that's what we're here to ask you. He said, oh, well, your cancer's gone.
Oh,
And so
oh.
Nell starts crying, and I'm sitting there saying, if this guy's joking about this, that's a bad joke. Anyway, it was daylight and dark from the time I went down and was tested and showed all this stuff in my chest and everything, and it was perfectly clear. And so he said, the thing we need to do though, coach, I know this is a hard routine you're going through, but we need to go on and get some insurance that to try to help prevent a recurrence down the road. And so I went, that was number 5, and I went to number 12. I did 12 treatments, and they got worse. And I lost 30 pounds. I went from my weight 207, which I'd tried to maintain probably over 20, 25 years. I went down to 177, and I didn't know how far it's going to go. I looked like one of those poor guys coming out of a POW camp. I've seen some of those emaciated bodies, and that was me. And so now I've come back up, and I'm actually starting to have to watch what I eat. I'm at 208.6 this morning, so I'm over my number a little bit. But I think the faith, just being able to go to sleep at night, and I didn't early on, I had those wheels turning. I'd lie in bed at night, and I'd think of every possible different thing you could think of. And then when I got to the point that I just turned it over to the Lord, I go to bed. I've got a little prayer list of people that are on there that I've told them, and I think sometimes people do this. They say, "Yeah, I'll keep you in my prayers," but you wonder how many of them really do it. So I tried to make a point. Anyone that I told that to, I was going to pray for them. So I got a little list. I do it every night, but I do that. And in all honesty, sometimes I don't get to the end of the list and I go to sleep. But when I wake up during the night, I said, "Man, I didn't finish. I didn't get down to so and so." And I go back and then I'll finish that list and I'll get through the list before the night's over. But I sleep and I go back to sleep and I feel well. I've gained all my weight back. I've got an appointment in April. I've had one follow-up appointment where everything was still fine. And I'll go back in April 11th. I'll go get another checkup. And I'm trying to get my hair back. I was slick bald.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
Yeah,
That's right. You got more hair than I do,
I
Coach.
had no eyelashes. I had no hair or anything. So
Right.
going back,
You're
thank the
looking
Lord.
great. You sound great,
Yeah,
and you're so encouraging. I've had a couple of other guests on here, and I've got to talk a little bit about that. So I've had Victoria Walker on here. She's got a podcast called Choose to Think, and what she's done is she talks about taking those thoughts captive, all right, and really focusing on positive things, which you just reinforced. You had all these things, all these thoughts come into your head, but you took those thoughts captive and you just focused on God. You focused on the Lord, and that was amazing. And most recently, we had Chuck Conderla here, and Chuck was talking about God's will and how, during the time he lost his mom, he kept focusing on God's will. It's something that his mom left him as a gift. But you are a perfect example of capturing those thoughts, taking those thoughts captive, and really focusing on positive things. You've always been an optimist. We know that about you.
yeah.
You've always been an optimist, and focusing on your faith to get you through that.
Well,
So,
one thing too, I love to go out to Carmel, California. I go out there and play golf, and I've been blessed to be able to do that over a long period of time. And I just marvel at those mountains and the beauty and the ocean and all that. But one thing that kept throughout this whole thing, I've said that the God that built those mountains and made that beautiful ocean and hung those stars, if he can do all of that, he can get rid of a little cancer. And so I kept just being very positive about what he could do. Now, he could have had a plan for me to, none of us are going to live forever. So at some point, it's going to be going on to your heavenly reward. So I've just, I think it's been like a new revelation to me about like people get up like anytime. I mean, you get in your car and drive, you're not driving down the road saying, "Oh, this could be the last morning or this could be." And so I think it is healthy to live with joy. Learn from yesterday. We all make mistakes. And so it's smart, I think, to learn from that. But then you got to move on. You can't live in yesterday. We weren't intended to live in yesterday. And then it's healthy to plan for tomorrow. I think we should have plans. And I was always a planner. But you got to live for today. You got to live with joy. Get up. My mother, uh, we get up in the morning and you start every day thinking of all that you have to be thankful for. That's how you start your day. You get up and just say, "Man, I've got this," and we all have things to be thankful for. Now, if you dig around, long enough, you can find some things to be worried about or to be down about or be whatever, but that's not a healthy way to start your day. And so I think starting every day, I've got that little book, Jesus Calling, and I go
hmm
through there,
oh
and
yeah,
I start off the day doing that and putting positive thoughts and just thanking the Lord for being here another day. And
amen.
I plan on continuing to do that and
That's right.
living with faith and living with joy. And whenever that time comes, then I will approach that and say, "Thank you, Lord, for the time that I've had," and I'll
hmm
go on to the next
Yes.
step and cross that river and go look at a bunch of pretty places.
That's right.
You know, if he
That's
can
right.
make Carmel, I can only guess what heaven would be like.
Oh, amen. That's right. That's right. Well, you've always ran towards your Goliaths, that's for sure. You run towards your
Right?
Goliaths, and you're a perfect example. So I just want to thank you once again. I know that the listeners will enjoy this. I want to thank them too for listening in to this wonderful testimony, a set of testimonies, actually. One of the most positive men I know right now is Coach R.C. Slocum. God bless you, Coach. Thank you for being part of this. And remember, folks, we already have the victory. We just need to get our groove back.